Welcome to the September meeting of the Capital Plan Oversight Committee. Do we have public speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 5 public speakers. The first is Jason Panero.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Ronnie. Nice to see you guys again after a very good summer. So, I would love to see more updates regarding Second Avenue Subway Phase 2. We want to see that project done correctly, not in a sloppy fashion like Phase 1. Second of all, why is that in the capital plan 2020-2024, an elevator wasn't included for the 7th Avenue 53rd Street on the 53rd Street corridor? Because as you guys recall, a person got killed in that station, unfortunately, due to the fact that there's no elevator at this station. And although that my surrounding stations have elevators, most of them, but there's people that they cannot climb stairs due to X or Y reason. But we need to do better. And I think we could do better if we had the proper management, of course. And second of all, and last but not least, explanation why the Sea Beach project ended later than expected. So I'll see you guys on Wednesday morning.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andy Keto.
Good afternoon, Capital Construction Board meeting. I want to say that there is very great projects that's going on across the MTA system, but there's also projects that I really don't like, and I think is a wasteful. Like, for example, Babylon interlocking and replacing the substation in Ocean Avenue in Belmore. Why? The infrastructure is okay. The Babylon Bridge already got the best infrastructure in the entire LIRR system. How about replacing the substation in New Hyde Park, Queens Village in Jamaica? Like, why you gotta favor certain demographics? And also, you could also divert that money and fix up my station 169, Parsons Boulevard, Something Boulevard, and Woodhaven Boulevard, all on the Queens Boulevard line. Why? Because these are important stations. 169 serves the Jamaica bus terminal and the central branch of the Queens Library, and Woodhaven Boulevard serves the Queens Center Mall. So people in wheelchair that need to get to the Queens Center Mall cannot get there. They gotta take a bus or something. And also, and you guys should be ashamed of yourself. If you guys don't like it, please get off the board. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Zen.
Hello, good afternoon to Pat Foy and Ronnie Hakem. I want to mention about Southern Brooklyn ADA accessible. F and G trains have a list of installation elevators at 7th Avenue, Avenue I, Kings Highway, and Neptune Avenue. B and Q trains have a list of installation elevators at Church Avenue, Avenue H, and Sheepshead Bay. But how come the Smith 9th Street, 4th Avenue, 9th Street, and 18th Avenue on the F and G trains and Brighton Beach on the B and Q trains doesn't have elevators for ADA accessible stations? For people with disabilities and wheelchairs wants to install elevators at Smith 9th Street, 4th Avenue, 9th Street, and 18th Avenue on the F and G trains, and Brighton Beach on the B and Q trains, but it needs to be complex at 4th Avenue 9th Street, ADA accessible on the F, G, and R trains. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Omar Vera.
Good afternoon, MTA CPOC meeting. Did y'all have a great summer? I sure did. The reason I wasn't here at all in July was because I was in Turkey, halfway around the world, on a tour in the city of Antalya, to be exact, as part of this countrywide tour over there. Anyway, let's discuss some things, shall we? So, besides concurring with the above statements that my previous speakers have made, we should. I mentioned this a while ago, and I know that you voted in the opposite direction, Mr. Chairman. But I believe instead of having AirTrain LaGuardia, we should just extend the NNW trains to LaGuardia Airport to provide a direct one-seat ride to Midtown and Lower Manhattan. It's not fair that New York is one of the few major cities like in this country, and definitely like a major world city, that doesn't have direct like metro access from the airports to the city center. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Now I understand JFK and Newark, you can't really build links because they already have the air train, they already have commuter rails, LIR for JFK at least here, and then NJT for Newark. But yes, I do know they also have subways, but there's no like one-seat ride. I feel like LaGuardia should at least be a one-seat ride. Like at least have one airport here, a one-seat ride, and I feel like the MTA should be in charge of that, not the Port Authority. You can ask the Port Authority for permission for land usage and stuff, but yes, but I think you should convince them to drop the AirTrain LaGuardia plan. I mean, their renovations of the airports are fine. I have no problem with that. We need renovations, but the access needs to be done one-seat ride by the MTA to LaGuardia. And I shall see you all on Wednesday to discuss further issues regarding leadership. Thanks.
Our final speaker, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing the name right, is Vincent Boldrin. Vincent Boldrin. That concludes our speakers, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Spiro. Minutes of the meeting of the CPOC Committee, July 22nd, are in your books, available on the website to the public. Do I have any changes? Motion to approve? Moved. Second? All in favor? Aye. Mr. Spiro, the changes to the work plan?
No changes. No
Okay,
changes,
terrific.
Mr. Chairman.
Terrific. Then I'm going to call on Tony Fabrizio and Bill Montanelli on the update on Stations Division, please.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anthony Fabrizio, Program Officer. Bill Montanelli, Program Officer, and I will be presenting the Stations Division Capital Program update. I'll provide the update on the 2015-19 Stations Capital Plan, including Stations Program progress since the March 2019 report, and progress on ADA accessibility projects at key ADA and additional ADA stations. Bill will provide updates on the system-wide accessibility study and select program highlights, including progress on the Sea Beach Line ADA and renewal project. Just to recap, the 2015 to 2019 stations program includes renewals at 16 stations, elevator escalator replacements at 29 stations, ADA accessibility at 23 stations, component investments at 105 stations, and miscellaneous projects at 13, totaling $3.2 billion. There's been no significant change in the overall budget since the last CPOC report. This slide shows projects stations has awarded since the March 2019 report. There have been 7 project awards, including small business mentoring projects. These include a station renewal project at the 138th Street station on the Jerome line, an escalator realignment project at the J Street Metrotech station, component repair projects at 3 stations, small business mentoring projects at 2 stations. Just want to point out that the component project previously reported to be awarded in March 2019 was actually awarded in May.
On your previous slide there, on the bottom, on the Rector Street, you should have a W next to the R.
Okay.
And on your next page, at the top, it's the N and the W to Ditmars, not the Q. Q doesn't go there anymore.
Thank you.
Andrew, as always, thank you.
Let's see where we are. All right, so this slide, thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
This slide shows projects completed since the March 2019 report. Completed projects include station circulation enhancements at the Broadway Junction Station on the Jamaica Line, a station renewal project at the Ditmars Station on the Astoria Line, component projects at 6 stations, including 4 stations on the Jamaica Line, small business mentoring projects at various stations, including the rehabilitation of 18 stairs. 6 of these projects were completed within or under budget and schedule, while the 8th Avenue Station entrance and the Jamaica Line component projects were over the original budget and schedule due to necessary extensive steel replacement and repairs with excusable extensions of time to complete the additional work. The completed total projects was $186 million.
So Tony, next time where there's unexpected conditions, can we bring a photo of, for instance, anything that's 10% or over? Bring a photo to show the board and the public?
Yeah, and actually, I think we'll have some on the Jamaica project,
Terrific, thank
which
you.
will be good.
Good.
So here's an example of completed project on the station renewal at Ditmars Boulevard. Major scope items here included replacement of the mezzanine to platform stairs, replacement of mezzanine floors, doors, and windows, replacement of canopies and windscreens, repair of column bases, new platform edges, rubbing boards, and tactile warding strips and ADA boarding areas. Yeah, we'll fix it. Thanks. These photos show the station component project at the 4 stations on the Jamaica Line. And this is actually the project where we did have extensive steel replacement. The major scopes items included platform girder replacement, platform reconstruction and new edges, canopy extensions and new windscreens, new platform lighting, replacing mezzanine to platform stairs, and column repairs. These are actually the slides that show the steel.
So Tony, just on that one, unexpected conditions on stations is not an infrequent thing. Is there some way, without doing something invasive, to get a sense of the conditions in terms of steel, platforms, et cetera, before work starts?
Do you want to take it?
Or look?
Actually, we're looking this one right now. I think we have seen several projects, mostly the elevator structure.
Right.
And I think for ourselves also, we got to do something different than so it is. So what we're trying to right now, part of the design, and we're going to do some sample exploration. So in fact, actually, we are now putting those projects are consultant design. That scope is part of the consultant. And some projects are in-house design. We're hiring a contractor right now to support our in-house. So this way, we will know part of the design so we can scope it appropriately.
Good, that should help, yes?
That's right.
Dr. Metzger?
Earlier today at a committee meeting, we did add money for the Fort Hamilton Parkway issue that you uncovered. This is a problem that also impacts the work that the railroads are doing on their own stations. Metro North has a lot of stations that need to be repaired, and one of the major costs of overruns is we open them up and they're a lot worse. So this is an example of something that really needs to be spread into the operating agencies as well as capital construction. Any technology you come up with may be useful to them, just as it is to you. It's important to share that knowledge.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, this is the one we're trying to make sure. Many of those things we learn right now. Historically, because there is other problem. We don't have the geo, we don't have the access, all these things. So visually look at this one. So once you take the peel of the paints, then you see it or nothing behind it. So the one simple concept I am telling my team there, if we expect contractor to do something, remove the plank, I want to know what is underneath. If the steel structure is good, or you're taking a wall out, you want to know what is behind the wall, what to expect. So we're doing those exploration now in order to get the scope right and the quality design. So we most certainly will share with them.
Good, thank you.
So these photos actually show the additional work we had to do on the Jamaica Line and on 104th, 111th, and 121st Street. The contract had called to repair these trackside platform steel girders at the 3 stations. When they were uncovered, there was extensive corrosion, especially on the top flanges and in the webs. So it turned out we had to replace all the trackside platform girders and 6 platforms at 3 stations. So essentially, I think about 11 or 12 50-foot girders at every station, plus the steel structure that sits on top of it, and rebuilding the platforms. So it was fairly extensive.
Can I just ask, while you described that condition, how many years do you think it took for that to become that way? And judging on your answer, should we be inspecting our elevated structures on a more frequent basis?
Well, these are original girders, so they're probably 100 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there are standard, we have the inspection plan already. I think every 4 years to 5 years.
Would that
there's a regular.
would that have uncovered this?
They will not uncover this. Like
No.
I said, we don't go and take the paint and all this. So that requires a special attention during the design.
Okay, I'll continue. Again, these are just more photos of the completed work at Jamaica, showing the new concrete platforms, new windscreens. This is the 104th Street station, similar work again. These are also the new platforms and new girders that were replaced. These next few slides show completed work in the small business mentoring program. This is a subway stair refurbishment at the Bergen Street Eastern Parkway station. This is a mezzanine component project at the Bowery-Nassau station, some new tile work. This is another refurbished stair at the 155th Street station on 8th Avenue line. I'll move on to ADA accessibility. The next slide shows the system-wide accessibility program status. Wait, is this right? Yeah, out of a total of 493 stations, including Staten Island, 123 stations are accessible, 87 key stations and 36 additional stations. An additional 3 accessible stations were placed in service since the last report. These include 86th Street on the Lex, which was a developer project, New Utrecht and 62nd Street stations on the Sea Beach West End lines. These stations are utilized by over 48% of total subway ridership based upon turnstile entries, exits, and transfers. For the 13 remaining key stations, 68th Street, Hunter College is in final design, and 12 are currently in construction for a total of $883 million. Just to point out, the Rockaway Parkway schedule, we moved it by 1 month from the previous report. There was just an error in the substantial completion date calculation, but there was no change in the contractual duration of 18 months.
And have the issues with Hunter College been resolved?
No, they're not resolved, so. In addition to the key stations, we also have 23 additional ADA stations in various phases of design and construction. 6 are in pre-design, 13 are in design, and 4 are in construction. The 7 stations have been added since the last report in design and pre-design. These stations total $1.3 billion. Additional ADA projects that are in construction also include the New Utrecht Avenue and 62nd Street stations, which were placed in service in July. More detail on the Sea Beach Line stations will be discussed later in the report by Bill. This is just some couple of stations of work in progress. This shows, there's 2 examples that we're going to include. This is the Astoria Boulevard station on the Astoria Boulevard line. This station is difficult as it's elevated over several roadways, including the Grand Central Parkway and Hoyt Avenue north and south above 31st Avenue. Major scope items on this include 4 elevators, 2 street and 2 platforms, structural steel repairs, full reconstruction of the hung mezzanine for additional truck clearance, and there's been extensive coordination of street intersection closures in conjunction with GOs and city field events. So cooperation of DOT has been integral to moving this one along. These are just some additional photos showing the platform edge reconstruction and the platform canopy replacement. These are just some photos of the project, the ADA project at the 59th Street station on the 4th Avenue line in Brooklyn. The scope includes 3 new elevators and machine rooms, 1 street to mezz, 2 mezzanine to platforms, relocation and reconfiguration of platform and street stairs, expansion of the north mezzanine, and ADA boarding areas and tactile warning strips. These are just some conditions. The photo on the left shows the utility work, relocating a 20-inch gas main. And the one on the right, we're just showing really, this will be a typical condition we see as we do ADA projects moving forward. The platform barricades narrow the edge of the platform. So we're starting to see this as we do more ADA projects. Bill Montanil will continue with the status of the system-wide accessibility study and the Sea Beach renewal project.
Thank you and good afternoon. This slide shows the progress of the system-wide accessibility study. Evaluations of the remaining 350 stations are underway. 150 station surveys were completed by the end of December 2018 as scheduled. An additional 152 stations will be surveyed by the end of September of this year, 2019, an increase of 88 stations since the last CPOC report, with the balance to be completed by the end of 2019.
And Bill, those last two bullets are, we're going to hold to those schedules?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The evaluations develop a conceptual accessibility plan and order of magnitude cost for each station, a priority of the Fast Forward plan. The evaluations will inform the selection of new stations and have informed the selections of new stations in the next and subsequent capital programs. And we obviously will be advancing the Fast Forward plan strategy of an additional 50 accessible stations with the strategy of no more than 2 station stops away.
Recently increased to 7.
Yes. This chart shows the placed in service progress on the 9-station Sea Beach Line renewal project. As a reminder, all 9 northbound stations were placed in service in May 2017, and 3 of the southbound stations, Kings Highway, Avenue U, and 86th Street, were placed in service in October 2018. I am happy to report that the 6-station renewal project was placed in service July 2019 as scheduled. In addition, the ADA elevators at the New Utrecht 62nd Street complex were placed in service July 2019, making both stations completely ADA accessible. The 8th Avenue Station northbound elevator remains on schedule for operation in October of this year, and the additional work associated with the southbound elevator will be deleted from this contract and included in an upcoming ADA elevator contract that I will speak about shortly. The substantial completion of the 3-station renewal project was achieved on March 6th, 2019. No change since the last report. The 7th Avenue entrance of the 8th Avenue station was completed in April 2019 on schedule, and the substantial completion date of the 6-station renewal for October remains on schedule. The project budget has decreased by $18 million due to the 8th Avenue elevator being repackaged with another project. These are some photos of the refurbished New Utrecht station and 62nd Street station. Just call your attention to the photo on the right of the 62nd Street platform, just to show how tight the elevator installation is, with the shaft almost touching the yellow tactile edge. It's impossible to put that elevator in the middle of a station, had to be put at the end of a station. Additional photos of the platforms at Bay Parkway and 18th Avenue Station on the N line. Finalizing the risk and mitigations for the Sea Beach projects. They're shown on this slide. Since we're very close to substantial completion, we are at the end of the risk register. Leak remediation is complete at the 3-station contract. On the 6-station contract, leak remediation on the southbound platforms is complete, and northbound platforms will be completed by the end of this month. A 10-year warranty is in place to ensure any reoccurrence of leaks will be addressed. Regarding the elevators at 8th Avenue, the northbound elevator is on schedule to be put into service by the end of October, and the southbound elevator will be included in another contract to be awarded in the first quarter of 2020 with an in-service date of December 2020. Thank you. That's all we have.
Thank you. Any of my colleagues have questions? Okay. Turn it over to the IEC, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Mark Saluka, and I'll be providing the IEC update on a few of the projects that were presented in Transit Stations program. Our report can be found on page 38 of the CPOC book. First, the IEC would like to acknowledge Transit's successful reopening of the southbound platforms at Sea Beach, and the 4 new elevators placed in service at Utrecht and 62nd Street stations, providing accessibility at 2 additional transit stations. We also would like to recognize the entire team's efforts in renovating the 9 Sea Beach stations. Moving forward, the IEC's chief concern and the project's remaining major risk is the ongoing leak remediation that is currently underway at the Sea Beach roof canopies. The IEC recommends that a proactive maintenance plan be put into place to respond to any future leaks quickly, to also curb excessive growth from adjacent properties and vegetation, and to engage the community and adjoining property owners to eliminate water runoff that is directed at the station's roof canopies. In addition, the core traffic light, which is located on page 103 of the CPOC book, has an update on the 14 ADA projects that are currently in construction that were featured in Transit's presentation. The IEC evaluates key performance criteria to determine cost, contingency, and schedule variances when reviewing these projects, and all 14 projects noted are currently identified as green in the traffic light report. And that concludes our update on Sea Beach, on stations and also the Sea Beach project.
And that includes your recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions of the IEC? All right, terrific. Bronco and Sonia, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Branko Kleva. I'm program executive for the Sandy program. Sonia J. Singh, executive for infrastructure division, and I will be presenting the Superstorm Sandy Recovery and Resiliency Program update. The update includes program overview and updates of the 3 yard projects and the Clifton Shop reconstruction project. In the recovery program, so far we have rehabilitated 7 of the 9 underground river tunnels that were flooded during Superstorm Sandy. Of the 2 remaining tunnels...
Sorry, can you go back a page on the PowerPoint?
Yes. I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I jumped.
No problem.
So in the recovery program, we have rehabilitated 7 of the 9 tunnels. The 2 remaining, the Canarsie Tunnel and Rutgers Tunnel, will be, the Canarsie Tunnel is in construction, as you know, and the Rutgers Tunnel would be following after the tunnel, the L-line tunnel is completed. We have repaired damages at the Rockaway Park Yard, and the other 3 yards are in construction, and I will provide more details on the progress of those 3 projects. There are only several recovery projects remaining to be awarded, one being the rehabilitation of track and signal equipment along the A-line between 200 and 207 streets, which will be issued as a DB, design build project next year. As part of the resiliency program, we are well on our way of installing various devices to protect flood vulnerable street openings, including station entrances, vent structures, hatches, and manholes. All of these devices, such as marine doors, flex gates, log walls, and mechanical closure devices, are custom made for each opening. Vent bays are most numerous. There are over 2,300 of these, and we are well on the way of completing the projects to close them all. The 3 yard projects, Coney Island, 148th Street, and 207th Street Yard, include both repair and resiliency work. More details on these will be coming up in the upcoming slides. A perimeter protection wall similar to what is being installed at the 3 yards has been installed at Hamill's Y facility in the Rockaways, while further protection of the Rockaways is being developed and will also be issued as a design build project next year. Also, a project to protect the St. George Terminal in Staten Island has been awarded for construction, and a design build project for the new resilient Clifton maintenance shop is underway, and Sonia will provide additional information. One of the remaining resiliency projects includes hardening of power substations, which is to be awarded as a design build project next year. The Coney Island Complex is the largest rapid transit facility in the world, covering 95 acres. It includes 3 smaller yards serving 6 subway lines and has capacity to store 881 rail cars. It houses 4 train repair shops, a rail car wash, various equipment and support facilities. The Coney Island Yard was awarded to Tully Construction in March of last year. The project involves installation of approximately 12,000 linear feet of flood wall, 9 floodgates, hardening of the traction power motor shop, 21,000 linear feet of new drainage, 2 new pump stations, an additional outfall, debris protection on the rail bridges over the Coney Island Creek, as well as construction of a bridge that will carry power cables and communication cables across the yard tracks. It also includes the replacement of power communication cables that were damaged during Superstorm Sandy. The project is on schedule and within budget. The project is approximately 50% complete. In the last 6 months, the contractor has made significant progress in the installation of flood wall and new drainage. He has also continued with the fabrication of the cable bridge and has delivered and installed one of the sections. In the next 6 months, the contractor will continue with the installation of the perimeter wall, drainage improvements, and the cable bridge.
And Bronco, 15% is where they should in terms of the schedule they gave us?
Yes, as far as the 15% is representative of what the contract would be at this time. Usually in the beginning of the job, there are other
mobilization
and other work that gets that eats up the time. They catch up as the project goes
Thank you.
on. So far, the contractor has installed over 3,800 linear feet of perimeter flood wall, which ranges in height from 8 to 14 feet, is driven approximately 30 feet below ground. He has also installed over 1,600 linear feet of new drain lines. And this is an installation of the first cable bridge section. The cable bridge will be carrying cables, both power and communications, which makes it easier for maintenance, and also it's easier to install because they are not on the ground and on the tracks as they previously were. And the bridge would also serve as a walkway for employees, making it easier and safer to go across the yard.
It was fabricated off-site and brought
Yes,
to the
this
site.
is fabricated off-site and then delivered in approximately 60-foot sections.
Thank you.
All of the project milestones are on schedule, and there are no significant outstanding issues. The project team and the contractor are being proactive in anticipating risks and taking appropriate steps to mitigate each risk. Some of the remaining project risks include storage, space for storage areas, as well as tight clearances within the yard for placing cranes to install the cable bridge. The risk for storage has been partially addressed by the contractor acquiring adjacent properties and by coordinating with yard management. Similarly, there is ongoing coordination with yard management for track outages and for staging the crane and other construction equipment. 148th Street Yard is located on the east side of Manhattan between 147th and 152nd Street, next to the FDR Drive. It serves as the storage yard for the IRT's number 3 trains. There is a station, 148th Street, within the yard itself. The project was awarded to EE Cruz in April of last year. The project includes installation of 3,000 linear feet of pile-supported reinforced concrete perimeter flood walls, 4 floodgates, and a deployable lock system at the tunnel portal. It also includes the replacement of about 24,000 linear feet of power and control cables. The project is on schedule and within budget. The project is 25% complete. The contractor is progressing well with the installation of the perimeter wall along tracks 25 and 26 and along Harlem River. He is also making good progress with the pile installation in the Esplanade Gardens parking lots. In the next 6 months, we'll continue to install piles, concrete footings, and perimeter flood walls. We will plan to start the installation of DC power cables and the demolition and construction of the new portal and supporting structure for the floodgate. This is a photo of welding of the sheet piling for the flood wall along the Harlem River. This is about 30% complete now. And this is construction of the perimeter wall along the tracks 25 and 26, which includes first pilings and then rebar and concrete installations, which is ongoing. This is about 90% complete. All of the project milestones are on schedule, and there are no major outstanding issues. We have met the first 3 milestones and expect to meet the rest. Two of the top risks for 148th Street project include access to Esplanade Gardens parking lots. Esplanade Gardens is an apartment complex sharing the yard property line, and some sections of the perimeter wall need to be constructed from the Esplanade Garden site, for which we have secured easements during the design phase. Coordination with Esplanade Gardens management is ongoing and working well. Another risk involves work at the portal that requires track access. To mitigate this risk, the contractors developed a detailed work breakdown with timeline for each task. To 7th Street Yard is located at the north end of Manhattan on a 43-acre site bounded by 10th Avenue on the west, 215th Street on the north, 207th on the south, and the Harlem River on the east. It is the main storage and repair facility for the rolling stock on the New York City A and C subway lines. It houses a train overhaul shop, a car inspection shop, a car wash, power substations, and signal towers. The project was awarded to Walsh Construction Company in September of last year. The project includes perimeter wall protection, similar to the other yards, installation of portal protection, also similar to the other yards, and repair and replacement of power cables, track switches, and signal system, and construction of 2 new relay buildings. The project is on schedule and within budget. The project is approximately 9% complete. Again, here, as in Coney Island Yard, the beginning of the project, the percent complete lacks the actual time, but that is not a concern at this point. Installation of the sheet pile wall has started, as has the installation of micropiles for Building B foundation. Cleanup of wetland area in the North Cove has been completed, and removal of debris from the river to install the new flood wall is ongoing. Power and fiber optic cable installation is ongoing. In the next 6 months, we'll continue with surveys and installation of micropiles, perimeter wall, conduits and cables, as well as removal of marine debris. Here are some photos of work in progress, installation of new utilities for Building B, and removal of debris from the river along the bulkhead. All of the interim milestones are on schedule without major issues, except for discovery of an underground utility not being at the expected location, which require redesign of foundations for Building A. The impact of this delay will be mitigated and should not delay project milestones. Also, field surveys revealed more extensive deterioration of the seawall, which could impact project goal and project cost. The project team has identified a solution that will minimize this impact and will maintain the project close to schedule and budget. Details for this are being finalized. I will be reporting on it for next time.
Rocco, whose risk was that? Was that Transit's or Walsh's?
That's Transit's risk.
Was this a design build? No?
No.
Okay, got it.
I was going to ask a question about the
Please, sir.
unexpected location of the underground utilities. What about it was unexpected? Were we told that they were in one place and it turned out they were another? Did we guess, or how does that happen?
These are utilities within the yard, and they are cabling, which can't be precisely identified unless you dig. You dig up that area, and this is with all the tracks are, and so from the information that was available at the time of the design, they were located in one location, and they wound up being 20 feet apart from what they were supposed to be. So that kind of required us to redesign the foundation.
But you don't expect it to have an impact on schedule?
No.
Question, Pat.
Please.
Maybe it's because our facilities are so old. We don't have as-built?
We do have as-built. However, all of these utilities are not precisely shown. They may be a little bit off from what are actually in the field.
That was my question as well, and that happens.
During the design, we do look at all the available drawings that as-built. So apparently this particular utility was not shown in the drawing. So therefore, there's no way contractor to see this one. So when we see the as-built drawing utility, we also do some of the tests we're doing just to make sure. But this one is not reflected there. So that's the issue.
As part of project design, there are test pits that are done and borings, et cetera, with as much as we can anticipate where these things are. But sometimes we do find things where we don't expect them. In addition, there are also upcoming changes to track work, which can impact the project schedule and cost. The project team has been working through these changes with New York City Transit Operations and the contractor, and are in the process of developing a change order. Again, we don't have all the details finalized yet, so I will be reporting on that next time. For 207th Street, there are several top risks that the project team is addressing. One is the scope change due to different field conditions, such as the location of the utility or track work. Project team has been coordinating with the user department to minimize changes and define scope to expedite the ABO process. Another risk is coordination of work with other projects. The team has been managing this risk successfully through constant communication with other project teams. A new project, 207th Street sewer relocation, is in procurement and will require significant coordination with this project as well. And the contract documents for the sewer project specifically require the contractor to coordinate with the main project. Seawall construction is another risk that the team is managing by proactive discussion with the designers, contractors, and operations to develop a solution that will minimize the impact on the project. And I think we're being successful in this item as well.
Okay, a question on all of these resiliency and recovery projects. I assume we're keeping our funders at FTA informed as to progress issues, et cetera.
Yes. As far as the repair funding, that has gone, will be all go in the grants by the end of federal fiscal year this month. So all of the repair funding which was at risk is okay. And 84% of the resiliency funding has also been put in grants, and the remaining will be done in the following fiscal year, but that's not at risk.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you, Pat. Can you comment generally on just the broader picture about how we're doing on the state of resiliency post-Sandy and so forth? This seems like a piece of the puzzle. I'm sorry if I missed the bigger picture.
So at this point, Ronnie, what percentage of money's been committed and obligated?
I was going to answer a different question.
Okay. You start.
But you know, one of the areas where we saw tremendous impact was actually where we are now, down here in Lower Manhattan. And so post-Sandy, these guys have done a great job together with our Department of Subways at literally rebuilding stations, closing vents, closing, putting in water thank you, marine doors, the seals, et cetera. But we see when a storm is coming and there's the risk, you actually see folks out there now in a very efficient manner using all this new equipment and new technology in a way that previously we were down to bags of sand and plywood. So a lot has occurred in addition to the heavier projects that are just being described where we had risk, like at 207th Street Yard, like out at Coney Island, 148th Street. So there has been a lot of work done. Look, I don't know if you happen to know the percentage to Pat's question.
Well, here's what I was going to suggest. Why don't we do this, Commissioner Lacewell, if this is okay? Why don't we report in October and November where we are in FTA funding, how much the MTA got, how much has been committed, obligated, and spent? And I think that would be a worthwhile exercise. So, Tom, can you take that on and make sure that...
Also, I think it would be good for the new commissioners to see some of the photographs. The equipment is astonishing, and you should know what you're looking at if you drive into a tunnel or see something that looks a little odd at South Street. It's very interesting.
Andrew.
Has the work at either 148th Street or 207th Street yards affected the train use of those yards? Is most of the equipment coming in by road versus rail?
There will be some impact, but the impact hasn't started. When we do portal work, we will need service diversions for those tracks where they enter the yard. Of course, we also need access to the tracks within the yard for track storage, and we take, depending on the area, 2 to 4 tracks at a time. We coordinate that with track management so that they can still maintain the yard operations.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions before we get to Clifton?
I think one of the things, Pat, the commitment to the Sandy, there's a slide, the first 2 slides, it shows that how much the dollar budget and how much is committed for the recovery and also the resiliency. But I think we're more than happy to show some of the picture that gives you the overall, the many things that we have. I think we're in a... Not for entire MTA, it's just for New York City Transit.
Forgive me. What would be important for new commissioners and existing commissioners is to get a sense of how much the FTA granted, how much has been committed, obligated, and spent.
Sure.
And let's try to do that in October and November, in addition to pictures of the work and the equipment. That make sense?
Yes, thank you, Pat.
Sure. You want to move on to Clifton, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Jai Singh, and I'm going to talk about the Clifton Shop. Clifton Shop is located on Front Street and Bay Street, adjacent to the Clifton Station in Staten Island. Superstorm Sandy had a major impact on the shop. The new shop is going to be designed at slosh category 2+3 flood level. It is a design-build contract that was awarded in December 2016 to Prismatic Development Corporation. It is also the first design-build where we have an existing shop which will remain operation throughout the construction. The highlighted red box you see on the slide is where the new shop is being built, and the pink box outlines the old shop that is going to be operational till the new shop comes online. The original substantial completion for the shop was July 2020, 43 months of construction duration. An extension of time was issued to the contractor with a new contractual substantial completion of October 2020. With this extension of time, the project is 7 months delayed and substantial completion is forecasted for June 2021. In order to prevent further schedule delays, the contractor has started working extended hours and weekends. They have proposed a second means of entry to the site via the underpass of the station for material delivery to the site at off-peak hours during the day. This has been granted by Staten Island and by the community, who has also been notified of the same. Their manpower has increased since we last reported. At that time, the average was 30 to 40 personnel per day. It is now 50 to 60. The plan is to ramp up between 70 to 100 once the building is fully enclosed and there are several trades working concurrently. We are within budget. Project is about 30% complete. 80% of the slab on grade has been completed. Steel erection and metal deck installation has started. We anticipate that the crane will leave the site by the end of November when the steel is completed. At that time, the roof and the roof units will also be installed. With the installation of steel, metal deck, and slab on grade, and the enclosure of the building, fireproofing, masonry, HVAC, plumbing, electrical roughing will start. The plan is to also start the installation of staircases, bridge crane, and elevator work in the next 6 months. As you saw in the earlier slide, Clifton Yard is a narrow and long site with the shop on the east and the station on the west. Major site work needs to be done north and south, north being the far end of the site and south being facing us. It's all in a linear fashion. Here you see is the pile claps that have been installed. The crane at the far end of the photo is starting the installation of foundation beam, and the path the crane uses is now the corridor which the contractor uses, moving north to south. A lot of activities have started now concurrently. We have steel erection which has started. Concrete form work continues at the east part of the yard, which is next to the old shop. Concrete is being poured on the west side of the yard, which is next to the station. The front yard of the shop is very critical as all its deliveries come in and out from there. It's also where we have all the utilities being connected to the new shop. The form work that you see in the slide are the turntables for 2-track. This is an enhancement for the new shop. As mentioned earlier, that the work needs to be phased from north to south. The corridor of the crane is what we are using as the getting in and out the material. This is the steel instruction. This slide shows you what it looks today. Actually, it's a week-old slide. Steel work is almost on its way to be completed. Major milestones. Pile driving was completed. The pile caps and the grade beams were completed in July 30, 2019. The contractor resequenced their concrete activities in order to have the steel work completed earlier. This has had no effect on the subsequent activities. The rest of the milestones reflected above are the contractor's schedule. We are yet evaluating their schedule. Two major risks were identified during the risk assessment phase. The first one is testing and commissioning of the equipment. Prismatic is a new contractor. Commissioning meetings have been started. The commissioning plan and the team have been approved. Preliminary submissions for test procedures, manuals, all have been submitted. The second was coordination with the outside agency. As you had seen in an earlier slide, all utilities come in from the front yard. Con Edison has already, service layout has been approved. The gas layout by National Grid has been approved. The builder's pavement plant also has been approved so far.
So, Sonia, so project's 11 months late. It's going to come in within budget. We believe we'll hear from the IEC in a second. I'm just curious, what are the lessons learned on this project at this point?
Lessons learned, one was the hazardous soil.
Right.
We did not have in the spec that you have to test for hazardous soil, but what we did have in this test is when you start your environmental boring, you need to go and test it to tell us what it is. During the testing, we realized that was the hazardous soil. So to date, we have 2,000 cubic feet of soil which was hazardous, which has been disposed. The other one was pile driving. We had limited number of borings done in this project because it was an active site. We couldn't go and do it. Pile driving activities took much longer than anticipated. So now so these are the two major lessons learned.
Got it, thank you. IEC, any questions? IEC then.
Good afternoon. My name is Cesar Silva, and I will be presenting the IEC report for both the Coney Island Yard and 207th Street Yard projects. The Coney Island Yard project report can be found starting on page 80 of the CPOC book. Since we last reported on this project to the CPOC committee, and based on the IEC's review of the project schedule, the project is proceeding according to plan. The substantial completion date remains at September 2022. Based on the IEC's review of the project's total budget and contingency, the associated design, work in place, and soft costs, the IEC finds that this project is within budget. The IEC participates in monthly risk management meetings with the project team. In the IEC's opinion, the project has effective risk mitigations in place to control the top project risk. This concludes the IEC's comments on the Coney Island Yard project.
Thank you.
The IEC report for the 207th Street Yard project can be found starting on page 83 of the CPOC book. The IEC is concerned about schedule impacts from track and signal change orders that have not been finalized nor integrated into the CPM schedule. The substantial completion date of November 2023 is achievable, providing mitigation measures such as a resolution of the change orders and working on the multiple weekend outages performed concurrently are finalized. The IEC reviewed the project's design, construction, and soft costs, and in the IEC's opinion, this project is within budget. The IEC acknowledges that the agency, having recognized the high level of risk of this project, allocated sufficient amount of contingency. Productivity must increase to meet the forecasted completion of November 2023. The project must also closely coordinate the upcoming major sewer work with current project construction activities. The IEC recommends that as critical risks have been realized and scope has changed significantly, a risk assessment refresher be performed once project parameters have been updated to reflect the changes. This concludes the IEC's comments for the 207th Street Yard project.
Andrew.
When you said the IEC is concerned with the impact, do you mean the impact to the project or to the service itself?
To the schedule.
To the schedule
of the project.
Thanks.
Good. Clifton, please.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My report on Clifton Shop begins on page 88 of your CPOC book. Since we last reported to the committee on this project, productivity of the design build contractor has improved, and this trend must be maintained in order to meet the current schedule. Physical observations by the independent engineer of actual work completed to date supports the agency forecast of June 2021 completion. Foundation work is finished and structural steel is well underway, as we just saw in the project photos in Sonia's presentation. The design-build team found some efficiencies by resequencing schedule activities and by accelerating structural steel. These actions may have recovered time lost in a late start to structural steel, which is the critical driver to current schedule activities. The IEC analysis of expenditures to date indicates that the project is on budget at this time. And lastly, the independent engineer recommends early user group involvement in commissioning activities, specifically when testing the new shop equipment and early testing of equipment wherever possible. And that concludes my remarks.
And does Transit accept that recommendation? Terrific. Any other questions? Andrew?
It's a general question. Will the rescission that the feds have announced affect our federal dollars on any of these projects?
Will the rescission, what rescission?
There's going to be a little chipping away. I spoke to Bob Foran about it, of federal dollars for several transportation projects.
Well, look, I think it's fair to say that federal funding of transportation projects is always uncertain, including at this time. The bulk of the money, and that's why I think it's Commissioner Lacewell's request is a good one. We'll report on in October and November in terms of how much overall the MTA and its agencies were awarded, how much has been committed, how much has been obligated, how much has been spent. I believe we're sufficiently far along that recoupment or rescission, if that's the right term, ought not to be a concern. Having said that, the quicker we can get projects like Clifton Shop and others begun and finished, not only is it better from a customer service point of view and an operating point of view, but reduces financial risk. Anybody else? Terrific. Ronnie?
Thank you. The commitment report through August is on page 94 of the materials, and in some there was a lag of 8 major commitments, but they are anticipated to catch up during the construction because they were changing project delivery strategies, taking advantage of design build, A plus B bidding, et cetera. On the completions are listed on page 97, and again, we anticipate meeting our 2019 completions goals as well. That concludes.
Terrific. Thank you. Any questions? Don, please.
The traffic light report can be found on page 103 of the CPOC book. Just in sum, 323 projects were reviewed in the second quarter, 47 in design, 276 in construction. 67% of those projects were designated green, 23% were designated yellow, 10%, 33 projects were designated red, and for each of those 33 core projects, the agencies have prepared a variance report stating the problem and the corrective action. For the Sandy program, the traffic light report starts on page 146. 64 projects were reviewed, 4 in design, 12 in post-design and construction, 48 in construction. Of those 64 projects, 65%, 42 were designated green, 30% yellow, 5%, 3 projects were designated red, and for those 3 projects, there's a report stating the problem and the corrective action as well. And that concludes the traffic light report.
Good. Any question on? Good. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Move second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.